Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar, How to Configure Always Encrypted in SQL Server 2016, a step-by-step demonstration. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Joseph Kaskassin. I'm not sure if you read my bio when signing up for this webinar, but if you didn't, I just want to give this a really quick opportunity to introduce myself and really tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the IT training industry for for over 8 years now. I've worked with clients in the public and private sector, helped them meet their IT training needs from cybersecurity, desktop support, systems, network storage, etc. And I have been with a Quick Start for over a year now, and I am serving Northern California enterprise clients. I could go on and on about myself, but I just want to go ahead and introduce you guys to the star of the show, which is Deepika Nija. But fun fact, Jeff Ratjan was actually supposed to conduct this webinar, but due to scheduling conflicts, he was unable to. So we reached out to Deepika, who was definitely very well qualified. Another fun fact, I've actually known Deepika for over 8 years. I've known her ever since I started in the training, the IT training industry, and all of my students always have great things to say about Deepika. So very happy. I'm very excited about this. So Deepika, are you ready? Would you like to give a really quick intro about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Joseph, for handing it over. First of all, welcome to this seminar, How to Configure Always Encrypted in SQL Server. I would like to welcome you on behalf of Quick Start. And talking about myself, I'm into IT since 1990s, and I have been working on SQL, especially since it was version 6. And you can imagine version 6 and now SQL 2016 and even 17 is in the news. So it's been a long path. I've also worked on Microsoft Exchange, so around 15 years of experience. And then I have been into the operating system, starting with Windows NT4, and now it's Server 2016. So let me just start over. And actually, the first slide is about myself. So I'll just bring that over. So basically, that's my name, again, Deepika Aneja. And all these are my certifications. Like I said, I'm into IT since 1990s. So, being into IT, we have to keep ourselves updated. I also teach NetApp, the storage side, and obviously Microsoft. And I'm here today to take you to the world of SQL and show you one of the features, which is always encrypted. So let's keep moving and look at the agenda for this meeting. The very first thing we are going to learn is what is always encrypted in SQL? Why do I need always encrypted? I mean, what use cases would you think would be, a proper fit to use this feature? And what exactly does this whole feature use? So it uses a set of encrypted keys at the background. What are the different types of encryption supported in this method? And then, it is always good to compare what are the other options SQL offers. So we would like to compare always encrypted option with the other option called transparent data encryption, oftenly called the TDE, so that you have both the options and you can compare and see which one would be a better fit. TDE, talking about TDE a little bit, I'm going to keep moving. Let me follow with the, today's agenda. At the end of all this discussion, I would be giving you a demonstration on how to use Always Encrypted so that you can actually see how you can implement it. So let's keep moving. The very first thing is, what is Always Encrypted? Now, this is a feature which was introduced in SQL Server 2016. Yes, guys, and when SQL Server 2016 was pretty new, they gave it to us in Enterprise Edition, and then with Service Pack 1, now it's available in all the editions. So yes, the good news is no matter which version of SQL you're using, you can still use this fascinating feature, Always Encrypted. Now, before I keep moving, I would also like to specify one thing, guys. I'm sorry, I should have told you that while you are in the session, I'm sure you might have some question. If you have any question, please feel free to submit your question through the session via, there is a question answer option, I guess. So otherwise you can email Joseph and we can address to your question. Okay, we would be taking some questions, but if we can't take all of them, we would definitely like to hear back from you.
Yes, please. And then I just want to encourage everybody to go ahead and use the chat button to go ahead and ask any questions. There's also a question and answer tab, whichever ones you're comfortable with. And whenever there's, I guess, a beat or a break between Deepika's lecture, I will go ahead and pause and ask you the questions. Does that sound good, Deepika?
Perfect.
All right, sounds good. All right, so yeah, feel free to ask any questions and I'll ask them. Thank you.
Okay, guys. So like I just mentioned that don't worry, SQL Server 2016, all the versions now support this. So if you have been reading some article where it says, oh, only possible in 1 or 2 editions, no, that's old, because with Service Pack 1, the good news is that it's now supported with all the editions SQL Server 2016 comes in. Now, what exactly is this Always Encrypted? Now, the main idea behind Always Encrypted is that there have been different methods of encryption in the past. And again, I would like to mention before I move on here, I would like to give you a quick overview of what is TDE, the Transparent Data Encryption, because this method is probably available since way back and people are pretty happy using this. And what this TDE actually does is it encrypts the entire database. Yes, guys, the entire database is encrypted and people feel safe. Why? Because what if somebody steals the database? All the encryption helps to protect the data. But let's face it, today we are in the world where we don't want to keep data at one place. We are all talking about cloud. Yes, we want to keep the data on cloud, but then the concern of security and all this comes into mind. So TDE is a very good method to encrypt data, but only the data at rest. TDE cannot encrypt dynamically changing data. That was one thing. Plus, the second thing with TDE was that when you encrypt the data, all the keys are on the server. They're attached to the database. So in case you had to move the data to some other place, you need to move the matching keys, certificates along with it. And let's face it, guys, with TDE, the main thing which people were concerned was that fine, I encrypted the data, but you are the SQL admin. You have all the permissions. And what if you read the data? Because in today's world, what's going on is that we like to save data on cloud. And there's another provider hosting your data. And he might be a SQL admin on his side hosting your database. Now, the problem is, I, as a company, want to send some data there, but I'm at risk. I'm like, how can I keep my data there? What if people read it on cloud? So Always Encrypted was also a very good fit for a situation like this, because what we are doing here is that we are trying to encrypt the data from the client side. Yes, guys, the application will encrypt the data before the data is stored on the database, which is the key point. And that's the whole idea. That I don't want, if you are the owner of the SQL database, you still can't see the data which is encrypted by an application. So things like that. And this was like, when people heard about it, they feel more comfortable, secure putting data on cloud. And don't think it's only for cloud. What if your database is hosted on-prem? Still, you would like to, maybe there are applications which are feeding in social security numbers or some important piece of data which only applications are supposed to read, and even a SQL admin shouldn't be seeing those private numbers. So that's one important thing, guys. Another thing is Always Encrypted extends encryption to in-flight data, not just data at rest, which means ongoing. And what happens in Always Encrypted is that if you're talking about a table and you are concerned about one of the column, which you feel that, no, this is very secure. It's like my social security or my credit card numbers from my clients, and nobody should be seeing it. So why not? Why we need to encrypt the whole database? we can encrypt a specific column. Yes, guys, Always Encrypted is mainly designed for you to pick up the column which is concerning and which you would like to encrypt. Allows data values to be encrypted by an application before they are inserted into a database. You can store sensitive data in a database over which you do not have complete admin control. Wow. So I'm the SQL admin on cloud and I'm providing services to different companies. They are sending data to me, but that doesn't mean I have control over it. Some of the columns are encrypted with Always Encrypted, and that's where the security comes in. Data is not visible to DBAs, guys, and this is a very good thing, or others who shouldn't be using it or should not be seeing it, I would say. Keys are stored at the client level or the application level. Again, an important point. So far, when we were using different encryption methods, everything was on the server, on the instance, on the database. Now it's on the client side. Client side is the deciding criteria. Client side has the keys to encrypt and decrypt. It connects to the SQL server over cloud or on-prem, opens the data and then reads the data, encrypts it back, like so decrypts and reads the data, encrypts it and puts it back. Data workers can manage the data without seeing the values. So yes, my data admin can still back up my database and things like that, but he would never be able to see the values in that particular column, which I encrypted. So Always Encrypted is actually a column level encryption versus the method transparent data encryption, which used to be the whole table. So data needs to be protected from, why do I need Always Encrypted? Maybe because I need to protect my data from being viewed by data workers. What data workers? Like my DBAs who are hosting my database, my cloud admin, or maybe a developer. And I want only, it should be visible to the data owners who actually feed in the data and it will value them. And that's where I'm getting the security. Data needs to be encrypted across the network. Yes. So whenever a client application connects to the server, it will use the keys on the client side, read the data in a secure fashion, and then keep it back in a secure fashion. Only certain data points should be encrypted. So again, you would not just start encrypting everything. Please, this feature is mainly designed to pick up those columns which are high security sensitive data, like your credit card, social security numbers, and that's where you would like to protect it. So that's the reason we would like SQL Server to only encrypt that piece. Other data is something which you can get from outside. It's like public data. Like, nowadays you can get a lot of information, but not social securities, right? And nowadays people are also talking about how do you think Always Encrypted is different than data masking. Now, what is this data masking? SQL Server has been also giving you this option since long. What data masking does is, guys, you can basically, if there is some data, let's talk about something like your, there's a company and for them, telephone numbers is like a really important thing, or there are some columns which they would like to hide. Now, they think encryption is too much work. Can there be an easy way? Okay, easy way would be just mask the data. What data masking does is it makes the data readable. Like, it won't be very difficult to read the data. That's what they're pretty much doing. So there are different ways. You might have seen sometimes like there is a cross, and then @com, or there is a dash. So there are different ways to mask the data. But again, that's always been there. So you actually have to make a choice whether you would think encryption would be a better fit or like obfuscation, which is like a data masking. But again, if you know the trick behind what data masking is actually using, it is difficult to read data, but not impossible. So definitely encryption would be a better fit if the data is really secure. Then in which use case scenarios would you be actually getting tempted to use Always Encrypted? Before I move on, guys, I'd like to pause here and see if you guys have any questions so far. Any questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat either.
Thank you, guys. But please keep following. So far we are just exploring what Always Encrypted is before we can actually see how to do it. So here is the thing, we are on basically what are the different use case scenarios. So remember, when we talk about Always Encrypted, it is mainly designed to help you protect data from client side versus everything on the server side. Can you think of why this was a very important thing, that why not clients protect data versus the server side? Because the methods like transparent data encryption used to be good because it's encrypting the entire database, right? I mean, whole table or the whole database, but definitely a processor hit or a CPU hit, because SQL Server is busy keeping your data encrypted. You open something, it decrypts it. You close it, it has to encrypt it back. And there were lots and lots of keys which had to be configured in order to implement TDE. And definitely, like I mentioned, it is a processor overhead. So this
Hi,
was another, yes?
Deepika, there was a really quick question.
Sure.
What about legacy clients?
So when we talk about legacy clients, it depends what type of, like what exactly clients are you talking about? So it's pretty compatible. I don't know exactly from which particular version they are supporting, but which version are you on, which you're concerned about? Any specific version? Because I haven't seen any note, but I can definitely look into it, that from which version of SQL
So
client.
SQL 2000?
SQL 2000. Okay. That would be pretty old. I personally don't think, you would be able to hold on. Actually, the main thing is it's just a driver. So what actually Always Encrypted does is it puts a driver on the client side, which you pretty much have to use. So again, like I'm not sure if they have some drivers which will work for SQL 2000 as well. So I'm not like 100% sure. I'm definitely sure, like, the newer versions, because 2000 being that old, I would think 2008, again, I won't like to, quote on, because I'm not sure. I didn't see any like hardcore documentation on which clients should not be using it. So I would definitely look into it and we can get back to you. That which versions, like I would like to still go to Microsoft and look at the handwritten, like, basically written document, which it clearly says that if you are, because again, even if I say one version, they might have like, no, only R2 or only with service pack, you can use it. So that's the reason I would suggest maybe in the next break, or if we take a quick 2-minute break, I can check if I can see some specific editions which they want you to be using. Okay.
Okay. Deepika,
Sure.
can you answer another question?
Yes.
So in SQL Server 2017, there's a security feature called row level security. Can you
Yes.
compare that with Always Encrypted?
Yeah, so row level encryption was always there. There was a column level encryption, but the whole scenario is that you still have to keep the keys attached to the database. So even if you're using a row level encryption, you are creating keys and you are keeping it attached to the instance, because keys don't work on themselves. There has to be an instance level key, then there has to be a database level key, then you would be encrypting the row. So it's like a big chain. And like I mentioned, if you have to move your table anywhere, like you have to take all the keys with you. So, and then even with row level encryption, there were some limitations, and it again depends on which would be a good fit. But their idea behind this is, I would just, while comparing, I would again give you the same answer, that row level, everything has to be handled on the instance level, whereas Always Encrypted is handled on the client side. That I would suggest would be the main difference between row level versus, and again, row means all, the entire row, which means the values from all the columns of that particular row. And here we are just concerned about a particular column. If you feel that you would like to protect the entire record of a client, which includes all the values in all the column, that is the time when you would still go with row level, because that's what you want to protect, the entire row of data. Versus here, we are talking about some values or some data which is for everyone, like a column based versus row based. Does it make sense? So it's mainly where you keep the keys and how portable your data becomes versus how you want to protect your data. Okay.
Thank you, Deepika.
Good. So again, like we are talking about what use cases would be for encrypted, always encrypted use cases. So application is on the premises and even database is on-prem. This scenario is a good fit where you are mainly concerned about accidental or malicious use of the data by my data admins. Like I've been mentioning, this is a key factor of Always Encrypted, that you are now hiding the data from data admins. Because I hope you, if you are coming from the older versions of SQL, we have been trying to get onto the security as much as we could, because way back SQL was like, you know, way back in 90s was the time when SQL Server was kind of, you know, compared with Oracle obviously, and said that no, it's not secure. And that was the time when Microsoft wanted to make sure to add as much security possible, and that's what they're doing. And if you guys are coming from SQL, like today also, you know that if there was a table and you wanted to protect one of the column, you know, you can even go to a column level permission and say, I don't want the person to have select permission on that column. So if that person does a select on the table, he sees all the columns except that column. But what about the SQL admin? SQL admin can always give himself select permission on the column because he's the owner, or he's basically the admin of the whole database. So that is where the things were falling apart, that, you know, we are able to hide data from the clients, but the SQL admins always are like super users, or, you know, they can do it. But with Always Encrypted, the main use case is that we would still be able to protect data from data admins. Yes, even if you're hosting my database, you still can't touch that column which I encrypted using Always Encrypted. And this would be another use case where I have my application on-prem, but the database is lying on the cloud, which means I'm so scared to send the data out. Don't worry, with Always Encrypted, they also cannot see your sensitive columns, which you have protected through Always Encrypted. That's the whole thing which they're trying to make clear, that, you know, that's where you would actually use Always Encrypted. So you can have application, database both on-prem, or you could have application on-prem and database on cloud. Again, I would like to compare when it used to be transparent data encryption, the psychology behind that database type. Today also people are using TDE if you really are concerned about encrypting the entire database. But the whole concept is that if you use TDE, everything is like all the keys are stored on the instance. Another important thing which you should understand is that when you are moving, like I've been talking about all these things that, you know, especially with cloud and things like that, it becomes difficult. Now, here they're trying to teach you is that, you know, mainly that how data can be like, I don't know if you guys have ever used TDE, but if you have to move the data to, or maybe you have to take out some, you have to take out a database from one instance and take it to the other instance, you need to attach it to the other instance, but because it was encrypted, it would not be complete till you move the matching keys and certificates with it. So that's the whole thing. And I would like to mention one very important thing here was that with TDE, the main reason was that we don't want application developers to put extra effort in designing a code, a piece of code, which would, like, you know, instead of application designers putting up all the code and like, you know, encrypting data, forget it, let me handle it, I'll encrypt the entire database. That was the psychology, that yes, application designers or developers would say, can we put some extra piece of code so that we can encrypt some data? So TDE says, forget it, take it easy, you just write the app, we will encrypt the entire database for you. But now it is one step ahead where we say, you just host the database, you manage it, but let us control as a client side or an application side what exactly would we like to encrypt and what would be like, you know, we don't want to expose this data, even if you are an admin. When you enable Always Encrypted, anything guys before I move on? You want to say anything? Ask anything?
No questions right now, Deepika. Thank you so much.
So guys, what do you think happens when we enable this? Again, remember, we can use this, but it's not just that we will open our SQL Server, open our favorite tool, SQL Server Management Studio, and start doing it. No, we need to do the planning that, oh, which database, which table, which column is where I'm going to turn on Always Encrypted. And once you're ready, then you will go ahead and implement Always Encrypted on that particular column. When you do that, when you turn on Always Encrypted, what happens is that it will automatically create two things, or Always Encrypted will actually rely on two types of encryption keys. One is the column master key, which is used to create and protect the column encryption keys. Guys, you all must be knowing that encryption always work in a hierarchical fashion. So it's basically, if it was a TDE, it's instance level, then database level. Like when I say database, it's actually the master database and then the particular user database which you're encrypting. In column level Always Encrypted, it will automatically, or you can use like third party, you can use column master keys, and then it will, column master key is basically a key which will be further used to encrypt column encryption key. And what is column encryption key? It is the key which will actually encrypt the data. So you will notice when you actually go ahead, which I'm going to show you once I'm done with the lecture, I'm going to give you a demonstration that when we turn on, I'm just showing you all this because, or making you understand that these are the things which we have to keep in our mind. Like I mentioned, Always Encrypted still needs planning because we should know what is the plan, what would be the best fit, so that instead of just trying it and then realizing and undoing things, we are all equipped. So first of all, you decided the best column candidate, which you would like to put Always Encrypted on. And then when you go ahead, it will actually at the background create column master key and then the column encryption key, which is actually going to be used to encrypt the real column data. And it will prompt you when you pick up the column and you say, go ahead, I want Always Encrypted here. It will ask you what type of encryption would you like to use under Always Encryption. Wow. What are the options? There are two options, like standard options. One type of encryption is called the deterministic encryption. What happens in deterministic encryption, guys, is that now think about the values, the data in a particular column. A given plain text value will always give the same cipher text value. So basically what deterministic encryption does is uses the same algorithm on all the values in the column, which means it allows you to filter and group by ranges. When you're writing queries, you can say where column equals to, but it may allow an attacker to guess that algorithm and predict the possible encrypted values. So deterministic is easy. It is actually a kind of encryption, but it uses the same algorithm. But if you really want to be more secure, you would go with the second type of option, which is randomized encryption. What happens in randomized encryption is that the same thing, the ciphertext value cannot be predicted based on a plain text value. So this form of encryption definitely is more secure, but the column value cannot be used in filters or grouping expressions while writing queries. Why? Because every time it's a different algorithm to look or to decrypt the data. So this would be something like, social security, which you're not always using to query, but they're lying stored, protected in one of the column in your table inside your database. So remember, when you will be turning on Always Encrypted on a particular column, you will be making a decision on whether deterministic or randomized. And you will see this when I will be giving you the demonstration. You will be seeing how there is a choice between these two options. Okay? Any questions?
Not right now, Deepika. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys. So again, like I mentioned, the best way to understand a new concept is to compare it with the older one, because the idea behind is it doesn't mean that nobody wants to use the old one. There will be different use cases. So whenever we discuss always encrypted, we tell what do you think made the requirement of always encrypted, or there are older methods which people use today also, and there are companies which are using TDE because their idea is to keep the entire database encrypted. So, that's one method to go for. And then there is another sophisticated method called always encrypted. So if you compare anything with the older one, it makes little more sense and you can value it more. So let's compare. If you want to encrypt data at rest, that's your requirement. You can either go with TDE or always encrypted. But if you say, no, 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 my data is always changing, then TDE might not be the best use case. You will be actually going for always encrypted. TDE, I think I should mention this before rather than coming up in another bullet point. TDE is going to encrypt the entire database. Always encrypted is only a particular column. Okay. How does it work? TDE is like, protected by database master key. Here, protected by key stored at client. In TDE, data can be viewed by anyone with permissions. So here you go. I'm the data at a SQL admin. Okay, so I have all the permissions, like I'm the super user. So I pretty much can see everything provided I give myself enough permissions. But in this case, data can only be viewed by clients with encryption keys and permissions. TDE will encrypt the entire database, and always encrypted will encrypt individual column or columns. You can still use both the methods with SQL Azure. That was another important thing, because people often are having this question that what if I go Azure? What are the options I have? Both the options. So like I mentioned, TDE is also another important thing which people use. But remember, it will always be a simple encryption, whereas always encrypted has the options of deterministic and randomized. Does it make sense, everyone? Any questions? Any questions? Nobody? Yes?
Hey, Deepika,
Yes?
there's a really quick question. Are you ready to answer it?
Sure, sure, sure,
It's
sure.
which clients can handle Always Encrypted Management Studio, and how would a Java app support Always Encrypted? Browser plugins, only apps developed in Microsoft tools.
Yeah, so there's a big documentation on Microsoft, because the whole idea behind this is that you would need a driver to work with an application. So most of the times people use .NET framework. It does support COM, you know, and it does support couple of other programming languages which you could use. Yours was the Java thing. I mean it's limited. There are a couple of like 4 or 5, I guess, if you look online it would mention that you have to be using your application has to be written on those like platforms in order to be using this always encrypted drivers, if that's what you're asking. And yes, you could use management studio to do always encrypted, and that's the nice thing, that it's pretty easy versus writing all the code as compared to TDE to create and to create a key, then use it for certificate. Here it's just a matter of like couple of clicks and you get always encrypted implemented already. The only thing is the client-side application would require the permissions on the Windows Store, where you actually would keep all the certificates, and that's how it would pass on a connection string in order to make sure, like that connection string will be having the statement or having this piece of disabling that column, and that's how they will actually be able to see the data which has been encrypted by always encrypted. So the same thing, guys. I mean, I'll cross check and then only I'll tell you the number. They keep changing it, and they are probably working on making all the legacy, like as much as they can go back to make the client supportive. but I don't have the right numbers. Like I like to check before I can comment on that what version. I'll let Joseph definitely, I'll send the reply to Joseph, or maybe, you know, if we take a quick 5-minute break, I can look over that what is the current client requirement. So that version onwards, you should be good.
Hey,
Makes sense?
Deepika, do you know which encryption algorithm is used by Always Encrypted?
AES.
AES?
Yeah, that's the standard one which they're actually using. So yeah,
Gotcha.
people are, you know, if you go online, you will see lots of, you know, debates going on that it's a good feature, but there are people always to criticize things, you know, because remember, Always Encrypted definitely has a limitation on the fact that you won't be encrypting XML data, or you won't be encrypting images with this, right? So along with that, they say, what if this encryption method is there is always, like, if you go and look in the debates, people are commenting that, but and again, Microsoft is also trying its best to, you know, use different algorithms and try to make it more stronger or more secure. Okay. I actually didn't got like a formal like, you know, I'm still looking for, because they have made slight changes with Service Pack 1. So maybe they have gone behind and asked, you know, the support has started with the legacy clients, but I'll definitely get back to Joseph, and he can comment to you about this, which I see most of the people are inquisitive about. Okay. And then you could be sitting on that, and with Management Studio, you should be able to do it. I mean, SQL 2000 personally is way old, because, you know, I mean, I don't know, not too many people in today's world are using it also. But anyhow, I can't comment if they still support 2000 being able to use Always Encrypted, because if they have some updated driver to support, you might be able to do it. But again, like I said, you know, I have to be with them, because can't, you know, say for sure that which version is safe enough to go ahead and use Always Encrypted. And it's mainly the application. So, I mean, you know, if you're using an application with the latest languages, you know, it should be okay, I think. But again, there has to be some documentation in Microsoft, which I can send the link versus, you know, so that you all can rely on. Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you, Deepika.
So let's keep moving. And there is a demonstration here, which I would like to show you guys. And for that, I'll pull up my labs. So bear with me. So we all generally use Labs on Demand, if you guys are aware of. Microsoft offers Labs on Demand. And let me load my lab. And in the meantime, I'm going to show you again, like I mentioned, guys, that whenever you are planning to use Always Encrypted, it's not just that you will go and start doing it. You have to first make sure that which table, which column is a good fit, and then what type of encryption are you planning to choose, randomized or deterministic? So all these things have to be not decided on the fly. You need to plan everything before you come here. And yes, guys, the favorite tool for all of us is SQL Server Management Studio. I'm coming from way back SQL edition, so I still remember my Enterprise Manager and Query Analyzer. If any one of you are used to or use that, which was way old. But Management Studio is really a great tool, which is for the developers and administrators to manage. So let's go ahead. In our demonstration here, the plan is that there is a database called Sales App. If you see this, I have a database here called Sales App, which has lots of tables. And one of the table is sales.customers. Okay. There is a customers table, and there is a column called, let's take phone. And this is a column which has all the phones, and the nature of my job or nature of my work or my company is that this is really security sensitive. I really want to encrypt it. I don't want anybody to be knowing about anybody's phones. Let's take an example. So right now, if I open my table and say, show me like some of the records, Do you see how anyone can read because everything is stored in clear text? Let's go ahead and do always encrypted on one of the columns. And my choice was phone. So I'm going to right click on that particular column. Remember, always encrypted is column level. And I'll say encrypt column. Wow. Forget about that TDE where you have to say create certificate, create keys. Just click encrypt column. And what do you get? Always encrypted dialog box. It's actually a wizard which will guide us, and it's so cool. I can go next, but I love to read it. Always encrypted is designed to protect sensitive information, which we already discussed. Let's go next. Which column, guys, are we going to encrypt? In my case, my example, I want to do phone. If I choose this column, because I already chose it here, so it knew, it's not letting me go next. Why? Can anyone tell me? Can anyone tell me why is the next grayed out? What else do I need to put in? Anyone? Do you see encryption type here? So it's not telling me, but it wants us to come here and choose between the two options of deterministic or randomized. Oh, I really want a lot of security. I would choose randomized. Next. It will auto-generate column master key and store it by default in the default Windows Store. If you wanted, you could also create an Azure key vault, which could be used on-prem or on Azure, and you can store your keys there. And I'll just move next. It's pretty much next. You can generate a script for the same, or I'm just going to say next. And guess what? It is right now encrypting my phone column. Please do it properly and do it randomized. Let's see. So what do you think? How can I see it's encrypted? Now, after it's done and I choose select, do you think it should show me the plain text, guys? Yes, what do you think? Will it come back clear text or encrypted?
Encrypted?
Yes. So let's see. Thanks, Scott. So maybe we're making them work more because of the randomized, so it's taking time, but we'll still wait. Done? Yes, guys? Just a minute. Okay, so let's go ahead. So how can we validate? I'm going to rerun this. I can rerun this query. I don't see my phone. Where is that? Can you compare the both outputs, guys? Do you look at the phone column here? Okay. Now, what we are going to do is, we have a script here which we use. Let me just show you that just for a little extra fun. I created a PowerShell script, and what I did was, have a look, guys. I said select top 10 phone from customers with column encryption disabled in the connection string. This is how you're going to write it. Server, so I'm just going to pass another connection string, integrated security true, column encryption setting disabled. And let's see what happens here. It's trying to decrypt and show you the 10 phone numbers from that particular table. It's just going to take some time. I did press enter, so it's just like, and you know why it was able to do it? Because this script has permission on the Windows Store. So it can get the keys Do you see this? Oops, since it was a PowerShell, it just, closed, but it actually showed all those phone numbers if you guys saw. I'll just again quickly try to show you. Or you could just use a query window to do that. So this is how basically kind of telling you that even I'm a SQL admin, come on, and I can't see the phone numbers, but the client applications can still read the data. Do you guys, I did mention the concept of masking. If you remember that there is also another way to mask the data. So how do you think if you mask the data, how would people read that? Has anybody implemented data masking in their company? Anybody who has implemented data masking in their company? Yes? There is a special permission called unmask. So again, it's related to permissions. So again, if a SQL admin has unmasked permission, he can still view the masked data. So again, going back to the same concept that all other factors or all other features of encryption do let the SQL admin see everything because he's the super user. This method is the only method which is designed to help protect data from the client side. That's the whole purpose. Okay, again, it's taking too long. Let's see. Artie's saying, I've already showed you. Why are you troubling me again and again? Here you go. So if you notice, there were phone numbers in clear text. Okay, guys. So basically, this was just, let's face it, guys, this was just a sneak peek on Always Encrypted. Definitely, there is lots and lots of things attached to it. There are lots of white papers. Microsoft has it, the whole architecture behind Always Encrypted. But we just tried to pick up, some pieces and try to make it a little interesting and get it across you that what was the main reason or what is the benefit of using Always Encrypted. I hope you enjoyed it. Just the purpose was to get across this. And I'll, if you have any questions, feel free to answer. Anybody?
Hey, Deepika, there's one question. They were asking if you could show connect strings in the PowerShell script.
Yeah, you want to see it? Sure.
Sure.
I can show it to you. You can easily find it also, just for your information. Codeplex and sites like that would have it, but I can just open it for you and you can actually see the whole script. I mean, this is a particular PowerShell script if you want to see that how it's being written. Or I think what you were asking was like, you want to see this server equals to, this is how the connection string would be. I'll show both of them. If you want, you can see from here. I'm not going to press enter, or I can edit this and show you that as well in PowerShell ISE. So if that's what you want to know. So here is the main thing. Select with column encryption. Do you see that? And you can, this is just a sample. You can actually easily get this code anywhere. Is this what you were asking? So this
I believe so. Yes.
And
I think so, yeah.
The other one was the PowerShell. I don't know if you would like to make a note of it, or like I said,
I do want to remind the attendees that this webinar is being recorded live and will be posted on YouTube. So if you do want a copy or the link to the YouTube link for this video, feel free to email me. I'll go ahead and put my email on the chat box. And also, I believe we could also share your PowerPoint presentation to anyone that wants it, right, Deepika?
Yeah, if you guys want, yeah. And I know one of you guys were asking about the programming languages. So remember, as far as the client development is concerned or the application side, they support either .NET framework or JDBC drivers or ODBC drivers or PHP drivers, which would be set up on the client. So just wanted to tell you, these are the 4 options they have mentioned. And apart from that, I will still, like I mentioned, Joseph can pass on that, how about the legacy question, which you guys addressed too. I'll just research and give you the latest version which Microsoft is supporting. Okay.
Yeah, please email me
Yeah, I'm gonna do
email me
it.
that, and I'll forward it to the and also to the attendee that asked that. Feel free to email me so I could go ahead and
Yeah,
get you that
guys, feel
information.
free because, like I mentioned, it is mainly like a sneak peek, and there's a lot more to it. And as far as I remember, we like Quick Start would keep hosting more and more of these webinars, right?
Yes,
Right.
Deepika, which leads me to a really good question. Would you have a recommendation on a good follow-up class that
Yeah, the
Quickstart
SQL
offers for
admin,
this?
like the SQL administration course would have
Perfect.
this
2016.
into it. Yeah, it would have this piece into it. Yes, because there's a lot more, but this would be in the SQL administration course, 2016. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, and we do
This would
run
be
that.
part of the administration.
Yeah, we run that very often. So if anyone is interested in that follow-up class, again, feel free to email me, and I either myself or any of other reps here at Quickstart would be happy to help you.
Any other questions, guys?
I don't see any. Well, I guess we could wrap up our webinar a little early,
Sure,
right?
sure. Sure,
Uh,
guys.
all right.
Uh,
Well,
yeah,
thank
have a good
you.
luck. Yeah, nice being
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Deepika. It was very,
here.
very, very good to be talking to you again. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
after too long.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and thank you
Okay.
everyone who attended our webinar. If you have any other feedback or questions or suggestions,
Yeah, we would love to
feel
have
free to,
feedback.
yeah, and feel free to email me. Again, my email address is joseph.kaskassan@quickstart.com. That's Joseph, JOSEPH .kaskassan, CASCASAN @quickstarts. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, guys. Have a good one. Bye.